I mean, she's like we see her like once a year since COVID. Um, Not trying to associate you with something like that, but it's a joy to have you to welcome you in our midst. Christina, I won't do a long intro because we've introduced her before. Most of you know. Oh, you know what? What I want to do say also is it's really uh, so nice to have Columba back. She's had some medical challenges, and I saw her I felt happier when I saw her come up today. Um, but yeah, Christina, the last time we heard from her, I don't know if it's still the case, but she was somewhere in Boston. I think Dr. Dave asked her where, and she said, well, she from the after the launch of her book, God is a Black Woman, there were death threats, so she didn't want to get specific. Um, but she's she lived here for a while. She got her PhD at UC Santa Barbara and became close with us, especially Diane and Sally, as you mentioned last time. So I listen, I'm just gonna give it to you, Christina, and just take it away.
Thank you, Pastor David. Uh, Hi, I'm Christena Cleveland, and I'm a troubadour of the Black Madonna, or what I'm calling the Black Madonna Renaissance, the Renaissance of the Black Madonna. I just wanted to give a little, I want to say hi, Sally. I don't think I've seen your face in a while, and like my heart is doing cartwheels just seeing you. And hello, Pastor Diane, and hello to everyone. It's so good to see you all. Yeah, just a little shout out to Sally and Pastor Diane because we met for prayer every Monday night in a sad windowless room in Goleta in Isla Vista. And I don't think I could have gotten through those first few years of grad school without that prayer times, Monday nights at 7 p.m. And most days I did not want to go, but I was always happy once I was there and so grateful and encouraged. And it was over 25 years. That was over 20 years ago, which is bananas, but I still feel it in my soul. Um, Pastor David, thank you so much for that invitation to move into remembering the mercy, practicing gratitude, being present to what God has done for us. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Black Madonna because that's not a little bit. I'm going to talk a lot about the Black Madonna because the Black Madonna is an incredible icon of resistance and nourisher of souls for me, and I think for so many of us. But I spend a lot of time on pilgrimage every year, sometimes on personal pilgrimage. I've spent about 5 or 6 weeks on personal pilgrimage. And then this past May, I took about 20 people on two different pilgrimages to the Black Madonnas of the Paris area. And and I'll talk about one of those Black Madonnas today. But one of the things that I've been noticing the last few years as I've gone on pilgrimage and visited these ancient sites of Black Madonnas, which is an uncommon dark skinned version of the Virgin Mary. She's basically a blackety black Virgin Mary, but she's so much more than that too, because unlike white Mary, the Black Madonna is not a figment of the white patriarchal Christian imagination. She's the ancient goddess who was essentially just gentrified by the Catholic Church. So her roots go back really deep, and I'll talk more about that. But when you go visit Black Madonna shrines around the world, and there are over 450, you see ex votos, which are images or objects or poetry, words, prayers that are laid at the altar in in either prayer or in some cases, gratitude for what the Black Madonna has done for people. So if you go to these like major shrines, you'll see crutches, you'll see wheelchairs, you'll see like wax images of body limbs, suggesting that the Black Madonna healed a part of their body. You'll see like hair from babies. Oftentimes, if a baby was, if someone was having trouble getting pregnant and they were miraculously able to bear a child, they'll bring the first haircut hair to the Black Madonna and give it as an ex voto and gratitude. And so, if you go, you can see. I mean, they look kind of like these like. It's almost like you're in this like wacky emporium of weird things. It's like they're just body limbs and collages that people, it's a lot of outsider art, so it's like regular people just like making art in gratitude. So it doesn't look, this is not, you won't see this in the Guggenheim, you know. This is like people's real hearts creating art in gratitude. And one of the things I noticed, which I didn't notice until a few years into my journey into the Black Madonna, is that the vast majority of the ex votos are given in gratitude for mercy and miracles. So many of us go on these deep, sort of dark night of the soul pilgrimages because we need something from the divine. And that's usually what jumpstarts us looking for something beyond ourselves. It's like, okay, what I've been taught, what I thought I believed or understood about the world, that's not providing me the strength that I need. So I'm going to look beyond myself. So we go on a pilgrimage, right? Whether it's a metaphorical pilgrimage or a physical pilgrimage. But in the medieval times, the vast majority of pilgrimages were people simply saying thank you for mercy, for intervention. And that really chastened me because um, I don't know that I was taught to practice gratitude for sure. But I don't know that I was taught to go on like a multi-month, multi-year in some cases, walking pilgrimage. It's extremely costly to me, my family, my time, simply to say thank you. That practice of embodied gratitude that's just as earnest as the practice of asking for what I need feels so powerful to me. And one of the things that I've noticed about those pilgrimages, if you go and you read what people have written, and it's they're often making these pilgrimages out of gratitude, in part to say thank you, but also because that embodied gratitude gives them the trust and the faith to ask for miracles. And so oftentimes when a new war is starting, people would go on a pilgrimage and say, thank you for delivering our village from the Normans in the last war. And we're going to remind ourselves of how awesome you are as we ask you to come and intervene again on our behalf. And I love that concept of asking with so much faith and vulnerability precisely because I just spent time saying thank you. And I know you did it before, so you can do it again. And the practice of asking beyond what I think can even be delivered in that like very vulnerable way. I don't know how you're going to do this, but I'm putting that before you. And the reason why that really challenges me and chastens me is because growing up in white male God's world, which is like America, I, I I was taught to worship and be aligned with a God that I ultimately could not trust. And so over time, I started hedging my bets. I'd be like, okay, like I'm going to ask God to like, work a miracle in my life. But what I'm really going to do is like make sure I have my savings in place, make sure I know attorneys, make sure that I have a backup plan, because ultimately this white male God who's distant and um, doesn't seems disinterested in me, seems burdened by me, sees me as a problem. I can't really rely on that God. So I can't really be vulnerable with that God and ask for what I actually need. Um, And that's like a very interesting way of being a so-called believer. It's a very agnostic way of being a believer, like, and no disrespect to agnosticism. I respect agnostics, but I'm not an agnostic. So it doesn't make sense for me to say I believe and then be orienting my life so I never actually have to ask for anything because ultimately I don't trust this God. Like, this God does not have my back. This God is not attuned to my needs. This God does not know what it's like to walk this earth as a Black woman in a Black woman's body. And so, one of the things that's been really powerful for me about encountering a divine icon, a divine archetype that does relate to my experience as a Black woman, is that I can engage in this practice of really vulnerably asking the hard questions. What is going on in the world today? Where are you? I am struggling with feelings of divine abandonment. What is going on? How can I be real? And I find that the alchemy is really in the miracle seeking. The alchemy is in orienting my life so that I have to ask for things that I can't provide on my own, that I can't deliver for myself. That's where the magic seems to happen. So I know that's a long introduction. I don't even know how much time I have. Does someone want to let me know?
We usually go about 20 minutes and then interact for a bit.
Wonderful. Perfect. Okay. So, is it okay? Is it possible for me to share my screen? Um, I'd love to just show a couple of images before we get started. Um,
That is doable.
awesome.
Can you do it now? Will it work?
Probably. Let's see. I can. Okay, great. Okay, so I don't want to spend a lot of time. How do I? Okay. So I don't want to spend a lot of time. I love to see people and stuff, but I wanted to show you this image of Our Lady of the Underworld, who I want to talk a little bit about today. So just to give you a little bit for those who are new to the Black Madonna, well, consciously new to the Black Madonna. As Carl Jung said, she's the oldest spiritual archetype in the world, and she's embedded in all of our souls. So she's probably not entirely new to you. But this is Our Lady of the Underworld, who lives in the crypt of Chartres Cathedral in France. And I wanted to just show you a picture so you could see what I mean by this uncommon dark-skinned version of the Virgin Mary. So she does look like the Virgin Mary. She does have what appears to be a Christ child on her lap. However, as Carl Jung noted, let me show you, yeah, this one first. As Carl Jung noted, in with deep embedded in every human psyche, as far as far he was a universalist, so he believed every human psyche is this ancient dark goddess. And since Carl Jung, both archaeologists and geneticists have confirmed that the oldest deity in the world is a Black female goddess. And so our prehistoric ancestors who lived on the sub-Saharan continent of Africa worshipped a dark goddess. She was distinctly female and she was distinctly Black. And then over the course of time, as our ancestors, because of course every single one of us has all of our ancestors ultimately go back to Africa. They migrated across the world, some north, some across over to the Americas, and some into the east. And what you see is these sort of reiterations of this same dark goddess, who's known as like a creatrix. She's known as the queen of heaven. She's known as the source of all life. So you see these iterations of her. She's known as someone who brings life and death together. So you see essentially the same archetype just showing up in different cultural capacities. And so, for example, over time, as people migrated north into northern Africa, into the Egypt, Ethiopian area, you start to see this dark goddess coming forth as Isis. And so on the two outer images, you see these really, really, really old images of Isis. That hundreds, maybe even thousands of years before the birth of Christ. And then in the middle, you see the Black Madonna of Howell, Belgium, who is Catholic and Christian and is a Mary, and yet also look at her statue. It's plagiarism off of Isis essentially, and she's known as a Virgo lactans, a nursing Madonna, and they're quite rare because the Catholic Church during the Protestant Reformation destroyed a lot of them. But early on, this was like the primary image of Mary, was this idea of Mary actually breastfeeding her child, and this is like an iteration of Isis. So that's just an example of how the Black Madonna is different than White Mary, and that she continues the lineage of the ancient dark goddess. And so the same is true for the Black Madonna of Chartres. Many of the Black Madonnas are can be directly linked to these like older dark goddesses. And here's just a couple other depictions of this Black Madonna, because the image of her in the crypt is it's hard to get a good one of her because she's in this like really dark and dank crypt. But she's known as Our Lady of the Underworld, and she sits in this wisdom seat position with a Christ child on her lap. And I just wanted to share so you could see what she looks like before I go into why I think her image is such an important message for us today. Um, this Black Madonna has probably been a version of her has probably been down in the Chartres Cathedral crypt since about 600 years before the birth of Christ, possibly longer. So she is a pre-Christian goddess that the Druids worshipped, because one night several of their wise men had a dream about a pregnant virgin goddess. And they said, she's the one. She's the one that we need to be focusing all of our energy on. She's the one who's going to bring forth life. And they dreamt that they found her near a well, and this well is about 35 meters deep. So it's a quite deep well. It's a natural well that's underneath Chartres Cathedral. And so that when they went to that well, they encountered this pregnant goddess. They called her Virginie Partere, the virgin with child, or the virgin who's about to bear a child. And so for hundreds of years, the Druids would come to the statue, pray to her, worship her, ask for healing, and the well, the hundred foot well that's associated with her, would offer life to them, and it would often heal ailments. And so, hundreds of years before the birth of Christ, Chartres Chartres, France was like the center of the spiritual world in the ancient Druidic times, because there was this like fabulous, miraculous goddess, this miraculous well, and this grotto underneath the earth. And then about when they eventually heard word that there was this potential savior who'd been born in Bethlehem, the Druids sent their own wise people over to Bethlehem to investigate, because they were like, yeah, we've been having this prophecy of this pregnant virgin coming and like saving everyone. And they go visit. The story is that they go to Bethlehem, and they like, yeah, this is it. This is exactly what we've been talking about for the last 600 years. We already know this. We already know her. Like, she's right here in our well. And so when the Catholic Church came and said, and essentially, colonized, gentrified Druidic, the whole old pagan religions, they built a cathedral right on top of this ancient grotto where this ancient goddess had been living for hundreds of years. And they renamed her Blessed Subterranean Lady. And so they sort of just took her into the cosmology of Catholicism, and it was a way of them sort of making peace with the ancient pagan way, and sort of helping the pagans to be colonized by Christianity, essentially. But the people underneath the earth, um, I mean, well, the people knew, and they were like, "This is our goddess from under the earth. So you can rename her, you can rebrand her, you can do whatever you want, but this is our goddess that we have known since the beginning of time, and she's always offered this life-giving water to us, and we know that we can turn to her in the hardest of times." And what's fascinating about Chartres is that upstairs there's this beautiful cathedral. I mean, most people consider it to be one of the five most beautiful cathedrals in the world. I've been there a few times. I think you could believe the hype. Like it's absolutely beautiful, and it's really known for its stained glass windows. And so it's very light. It's very airy. It's a Gothic cathedral. It's very feminine in its style, and it's very yeah, it's very spacious and very open. But that the crypt underneath it, where the Black Madonna lives, is like very dark and dank. It smells like my grandmother's basement in Chicago on a hot summer day. You know, like it's like you walk in there and you're like, why would anybody want to be in here? And it's really cold. And she's over in the shadowy corner. Like you saw that first picture, that's an actual image of her. It's hard to even get a good picture of her because she's in the shadows. But the people knew, you know, upstairs there's this airy, beautiful, light-filled cathedral. And that's great for when life is good. But when life is hard and we have questions and we have pain that we can't make sense of, and when it seems like the mercy of God cannot be found in the light, we go down to the crypt and we have a conversation with Our Lady under the earth, who gets it, who lives in this dank space and is holding it down for all of us all the time. And so they would continue to go and connect with this Black Madonna, even as the church, even as this cathedral became really renowned. And eventually, the Catholic Church became threatened by the power of people walking by the white Jesus in the upstairs and the white Mary in the upstairs and going down to the crypt to get to their blessed subterranean lady, that they eventually closed off the crypt, shut off the well. You know, they were just too threatened by who she was. Thankfully, an archaeologist excavated it all in early, like 1905, and kind of brought her back into public conversation. But the last thing I want to say before we open for conversation is what's really powerful about this Black Madonna, besides the fact that she is, you know, in the crypt, she's down in the dirt of life, she's down in the mustiness of life. She's the one that we can go to when we don't know how to even be. Earlier, Pastor David was talking about SCLC and like the original like African American civil rights movement, and how keeping your heart soft, keeping your heart clean was like was like a major practice within the movement. And it's similar with the Black Madonna. Like she's the one you can go to and say, I have a lot of resentment. I'm using a lot of labels. I'm pointing a lot of fingers. I'm having a hard time looking at how I'm perhaps participating in some of the pain that's going on in this world. It's a lot of blaming other people. It's a lot of dehumanizing other people. And she's like, yeah, I'm right here to talk to you about those like very real things. But another thing that's really fascinating about this particular Black Madonna is that the reason why Chartres Cathedral is as famous as it is because of her power. There's a labyrinth in Chartres Cathedral in the upper cathedral, and it's magical. It really is, and it's the most famous labyrinth in the whole world. And people come and walk it and pray it all the time. It's only open on Fridays between Lent and the beginning of Advent. And um, the reason why the labyrinth is so powerful is because the Black Madonna is directly underneath it in the crypt, holding it up. So she's down in the underworld of the earth. She's Our Lady under the earth, holding the entire labyrinth, which represents our walk through this earth, in her hands. She's holding it up. I like to call her she who holds it all so that we don't have to. And what's really beautiful is you can go and you can walk the labyrinth. And I don't know if any of you have walked labyrinths before, but they're so powerful because they really deconstruct what this white male patriarchal God has taught us about life. This white male patriarchal God has taught me that life is a maze. Life should be confusing. Don't make a wrong turn because you're going to get turned around and you're going to get trapped. No one's going to come and save you. If you take two steps forward and have to take one step back, that means you did it wrong. So life should be linear. Life should be perfect. And mazes are very distinct from labyrinths, and that mazes are designed to like be fuddle and frustrate you and prevent you from moving through them. They usually have really high hedges. You can't see where you're going, and you have to just trust your best judgment. Labyrinths are kind of the opposite of that. They're actually designed to hold and guide. If you walk onto a labyrinth, there is literally no way to get lost because there's only one way in and one way out. And if you just keep going, you're gonna get to the center. Like there's no way that you can get lost. Also, they're just flat on the ground. So you walk in and you can see everything. They're not confusing. And then another thing that's really beautiful about the Chartres labyrinth in particular is that there are there are nodes around it that there, and if you count them, there are 114 nodes around them, and represent the 114 days in the lunar calendar. And this is because the labyrinth um, were illiterate, so they needed to use symbolism. And so they were like, this labyrinth is being held by this Black Madonna, and she's walking with you every single day of the lunar calendar. Every single day, day in and out, you can always turn to her for guidance. There's no way you can get lost. It's okay to take one step forward and two steps back because this isn't a race and this isn't scary. And you can stop at any point and take a breath and ask for direction. And I was there with a bunch of Black women walking it. It was magical. I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to walk the Chartres labyrinth with a group of Black women, which is what I got to do in May. And one of them was sharing about her dad, who's now deceased, but was a wonderful Black Baptist preacher. And she said, when I walk this labyrinth, I'm reminded of my dad's sermon, which was titled, Are You Lost or Are You Simply in Need of Direction? Because she says, I can stop at any point in this labyrinth, touch the ground, and feel the Black Madonna's presence beneath me, holding up this labyrinth. And I know, oh, I'm walking through this life, and it's not a maze and it's not a race. And I don't have to beat the clock, or I don't have to beat the house or beat the system. I actually can just stop and ask for direction. And here she is holding it up with her huge hands. And that's the last thing I want to say about this Black Madonna. Like many Black Madonnas are often known for having sort of like disproportionately large hands. And that's because the ancient goddess, this ancient Black goddess, was known for having hands that were literally the gateway to life. And so the larger the hands, the more that you can connect with the life force that she's offering. And so that's why Black Madonnas have these huge hands. So it's these huge hands that are holding up this labyrinth that we're right now. And this idea like, am I lost, or do I really, am I really just in need of direction? Oh, I can actually stop and ask for direction as I face the challenges that we're going through today. So I'll stop there because I know I've been talking for a while and I've shared a lot, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
Just before folks weigh in, this just kind of rose up within me when you got towards the end. So I'm just going to go with it. She's got the whole world in her hand. She's got the whole world in her hand. She's got the whole world in her hand. She's got the whole world in her hands. All right. So I just needed to get that out. Um, yeah, that's probably one of the first songs I ever learned or heard when I was, a baby, really. Um, but not with that particular pronoun. Um, those pronouns. Uh, yeah, go ahead, David. Jump right in.
Hi. Uh, Nice to hear from you again.
Mhm.
I had a very moving experience I have to uh, mention at Montserrat in Catalonia. There's an incredible monastery there. It's like a little village. And there's a phenomenal Black Virgin there. And my goodness, there's a long line of people. I mean, you stand in line for a long time, and people proceed by very slowly. And everybody gets to spend as much time in front of her as they want, but it's very moving. It's something I would say primordial about it. It's just it's hard to express. Uh, I've been to Chartres a couple of times. Of course, everybody goes and admires the stained glass. uh, I had no idea about the Black Virgin there. You say it's shut off now? It's not. Is it not open to the public?
She is open to the public, but like so many of the Black Madonnas around the world,
Off the
there's a lot
beaten
of
path?
gatekeeping. There's a lot of gatekeeping, and
Oh,
so she's only open during there's a mass in the crypt every day at 11,
Oh,
and so she's only open for the mass. Yeah,
oh, good to
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. So you can see her, and there's a Black Madonna upstairs, Our Lady of the Pillar, but she's been whitened. She was whitened in like 2005 or something like that when they quote restored her. And so it was quite it was quite a scandal in the art world and in the spiritual world.
Oh.
She's been Black this whole time, but yeah, they whitened her, and now she's quite ghastly. Yeah,
Another reason to go back to Chartres.
yeah, yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, and I'm
Christina,
grateful for.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just grateful for David mentioning La Morenita, the Black Madonna of Montserrat, because I was gonna share a short medieval story about her and Mercy.
Oh, please.
Um, but there's this there was a woman whose husband had been cheating on her with a mistress in like the 1200s in northern Spain, and this woman was, quite a lot of self-righteous indignation, which makes sense. She's human, and so she's praying to the Black Madonna and saying, strike this woman, smite her, send hell storms on her, this needs to be stopped. And the Black Madonna just said to her, I hear you, but that's not how I do things. And also, I would like you to know that this woman prays to me every single day at this time. And so there are sides to this woman that you don't see. And so then she said, I need you to, she told the wife, I need you to go to sleep and trust me on this. And then the morning, the wife woke up and the mistress was waiting right outside their house and came to her and said, I am so sorry. What I've been doing is wrong and I'm going to stop. The Black Madonna came and handled me herself. So it's a really when I read that story, which is from the 1200s, I think, gosh, how often, especially in this political climate, am I so invested in they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong. And I'm often acting out of that self-righteous indignation as opposed to acting out of the Black Madonna's actual guidance. Like, speak truth, but speak truth my way, not your way.
Thank you. Great story.
Yeah, it is a fun story. Thank you.
Scott's going to say something, and I just wanted to ask you, Christina, um, have you heard of a book called Who? The name of the book is Who Cooked the Last Supper?
Mm-mm. Sounds good.
It came to mind often as you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
the pre-Christian goddesses, deities. Um, just in case anybody's interested, the a review of the book says that is, and I quote, it overturns the fallacy of history, but fallacy is Phallussy, overturns the fallacy of history and gives voice to the untold history of the world, the contributions of millions of unsung women. Anyway, Scott, take it away.
Yeah, Christine, I loved your presentation and what you had to say, and I learned a lot. And that's after the fact that I spent 6 years in a Roman Catholic seminary, um, almost became a Catholic. And, it's interesting. One thing, well, first of all, as a Catholic growing up in Catholic formation, of course, I said the rosary. I sinned. God knows I sinned a lot. I'd have to say Hail Marys for my, after would assign them for my attrition and contrition. But Mary has been such a problematic figure, especially first of all presenting her as white, bizarre, but as like promising and stuff. But Protestants, maybe I'm not being fair, but other Christian denominations have challenged Catholicism for two major things. One is the Pope, the other is Mary, because we look up to her in a sense the way you described her in some ways, and I regret the fact that she's done as white. And I'm curious about your own, how do I say it? What do you think about Catholicism? What do you think about, I don't know if that's a fair question or not, but hope for the Catholic Church, whatever you want to say. That'd be.
Oh yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah. I think of Catholicism like I think of most institutional religions. Um, you have to uncover a lot and excavate a lot in order to get to the Christ within. But it's there. I think, especially in folk Catholicism, which I think is fascinating and wonderful and a rogue, right? This isn't anything that the Vatican would approve of, but it's quite pagan. I mean, Catholicism is extremely pagan in its roots, and folk Catholics tend to draw on those roots quite a bit more. And I think that's really beautiful. But yeah, I mean, most of it is I would say it's the same as Protestantism, where um, there's such an alignment and allegiance with power that you start to wonder, is this even liberating for anybody, much less the marginalized? Yeah.
I just want to thank you so much again. I remembered the last time you were with us and the Black Madonna, and I loved it. And it was so funny because I was thinking of before the bleaching and the blending of empire with the church. Before when all of a sudden the Roman Empire became
Mhm.
the Roman Catholic Church. Now we're religious. We're not just, what I mean? So now we got God on our side. And it's funny how they inserted all of that, yet they were basing it on Jesus, who had the birth had nothing to do with the assistance of a man. It was an immaculate conception. It was a woman, only the woman, that brought our Savior into the world. God assisted that with a miracle. So the man wasn't even involved. So it's a lot of ego coming out of the men trying to get back in charge of this. And then they bleach it down to take it also away from the people of color, which is just ridiculous. You've taken all the Jew out of the Jew. The
Mhm.
original, you know what I mean? Like, let's keep it real. Those people were not bleached you know what I mean? Come on. And it's great that we can, when the truth comes out and you start to be able to express it, then you see the beauty in religion. You see the beauty of everything going on. It's great that we have these communities like this where we can actually talk about Jesus, the real Jesus, and what Jesus was about, and what Mary was about, and what love is about. I just want to thank you.
Thanks. The earliest, so the Eastern Orthodox Church was affirmed Mary as the Theotokos, the mother of God, before anyone else did. And one of their names for her is the container of the God whom nothing can contain. And so in their, they would say it, a lot of, I would say, Catholic mystics, particularly leading up to the medieval times, would say Christ is legitimate because of Mary, not the other way around, which is what the church has tried to teach us. So yeah, there's a lot of liberation from patriarchy there too. And I don't think it has to be an either or necessarily. I think that it's patriarchal that there has to be a higher if we need a hierarchy, you know what I mean? But I think what it does is it liberates and it says, yeah, the divine feminine's always been there. And the divine feminine does not need to be legitimized by any male or male figure. Yeah.
Christina,
And smart men. Oh yeah, where?
Just said Brigitta had her hand up.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Hi, Christina. I just want to thank you for some really beautiful perspectives that you shared. I really love those. But I have a super stupid question, and I hope everybody will forgive me for this. When you say Black Madonna, I don't know much about this topic, so I'm going to have to ask my stupid question. Is this referring to race, or is this referring to materials of the statue? And is this something that people then have put meaning onto that? Like, I'm wondering, the person who originally made the statue, were they thinking the same things that people are now thinking?
Those are great questions. I think it's both and. The majority of Black Madonna statues are attributed to Luke, the evangelist. And so he knew, he knew the historical Mary, who he was basing those off. So they were probably Black because he knew her and was like, she's Black, this is Black. Mark also is responsible for, Mark, the gospel writer, is also responsible for a lot of the sort of movement of the Black Madonna into France, into Italy and Spain. And he was Black himself too. So I think part of it has to do with just the historical representation. But then, like I was talking about really briefly earlier, you see the most Black Madonna statues in the world, especially in Europe, in places where there was already a long-standing pagan devotion to the dark goddess, whether that was Black Artemis, whether that was Isis, whether that was a Black Cibele in Italy. Everywhere you go and you see Black Madonna statues now, it's because there was an Isis cult there for thousands of years. And so even if people were using materials that are Black, and that's why the Black Madonna is Black, they were doing that on the same, I mean, those Black Madonnas exist on like the ancient sacred sites that were already devoted to like an Isis or a Black Artemis. So I think it does have to do with the fact that they're carrying on this lineage and this reality that this dark goddess does come from sub-Saharan Africa and is, at least her skin had is Black. Now, our concept of race is really modern. And so I doubt that Luke the Evangelist had a concept of race that's like mine, in 2025. However, everywhere you go, the Black Madonna always goes out of her way to stand in solidarity with the most marginalized. And so in that sense, from a power dynamic, she's Black too. And who she chooses to identify with. So you see this in the Philippines, where she identifies with the most dark-skinned, indigenous, marginalized Filipino communities that look way darker than what we would. They look Black. They look way darker than what you would think of when you think of a Filipino, because they opted out of colonialism. They didn't mix with the Spanish. So they're not light-skinned, and she goes out of her way to identify with them. And so it's interesting. You're like, okay, so then she's Black. Not only is she Black in terms of her skin color, but she's Black in terms of who she stands in solidarity with, from a power dynamic too.
I'm kind of wondering if part of that is coming from us towards her, in that it's easier to relate to somebody with values that you put upon them.
Well, I think we co-create the God space for
Mhm.
sure. You know, our perceptions impact us. But I think another thing that's really fascinating about particularly the lineage of the Black Madonna is that she loves to be named,
Mhm.
and she's not like the patriarchal God who's like drops some tablets and says, I am that who I am that I am, I'm going to declare myself to you. She's who she is very much based on this really beautiful relational conversation with the people and what the people need her to be in order to be free. Free by her definition of free, not their definition of free, which is not always the same thing. But if you go and you visit these Black Madonna shrines, there'll be like 15 like official titles of her, depending on the era and depending on how people saw her. So I think, and I like that it feels intellectually honest to me, because of course how we engage with the divine is going to be in part impacted by our psyches and our needs. And then hopefully it's a mutual relationship. So we're being formed by the divine as the divine is being formed by us. And it seems like that's what happens across history with the Black Madonna. But, I think a cautionary tale here is that, the Black Madonna has been co-opted and weaponized just like any other icon. Christopher Columbus was a huge Black Madonna devotee, and he colonized most of the world in honor of her. That's why the island of Montserrat is named after the Black Madonna of Montserrat. It's why the island of Guadalupe in the Caribbean is named after the Black Madonna of Guadalupe in Western Spain, which is the original Guadalupe. So, like, you know, I think that the challenge is not, oh, let me pick a new deity and that will fix me. It's really like, oh, I need to heal from this white patriarchal conditioning, because I can weaponize anything.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's part of the mystery, I guess, of how we relate, is that to me, when I'm in prayer and I feel things that come to me, I think that's easier in places where I feel comfortable or where I feel there's possibility, and I would think that that would be true for anyone, that there might be places where they feel like they can relate more, where they feel like, this is a more comfortable place for me because it doesn't represent something that I either fear or hate. And so I think that's one of the beautiful mysteries about our relationship with our spiritual relationships, because it can mean so much to different people.
Matt was going to weigh in.
Christina, thanks for your presentation. Did you ever do the labyrinth when you were at UCSB at Campus Point?
I didn't know there was one there.
Oh yeah, it's really cool. It's right there at like the very peak of Campus Point. It's not a hedged one, but it's just on the ground, and it's very meditative space to just feel the wind and the breeze and just kind of be pushed and pulled in particular directions. And yeah, it's very yeah. So if you ever get a chance and you're back here, check it out.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
and all of you who are out there, I encourage you to go. There's a labyrinth. There are labyrinth finders online where you can just put in
Oh,
your zip code, and
nice.
it'll tell you all the labyrinths near you.
Yeah.
And many labyrinths are copies of the Chartres labyrinth because it's the most famous one in the world.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I've been to a couple here in Santa Barbara, so they do exist.
And one real quick
Before we
thing, real fast.
I wasn't. Can I
Oh,
keep
sorry.
Going? Can I keep going? Or do we need
Yeah.
to have time? Okay.
No,
No, go ahead. Okay, so here it is. So the other thing I was going to say that you brought up that's a huge point is how the pagan arts were incorporated within the religion, and because there's a lot of similarities that people aren't even aware of that we practice today that weren't Christian, original Christian, that were pagan actual, things that were incorporated. And a lot of people don't know that as well. You know what I mean? That kind of information, when you know more about your current religion, you take and are able to look at it a little more realistically.
Yeah. Even just the idea of Christmas
Yeah.
Were you
But
going to say more, Matt? And after
I would.
Matt does this, if there's anybody who hasn't weighed in, and you will, take one more person, and but go ahead, Matt.
Thanks. Yeah, I was really struck by your presentation on the Black Madonna of the Underworld, and I was thinking of the kind of the correlation of I don't mean this in the negative space, but in how we socialize kind of the metaphor of like the musty kind of dark space and where she is. Because I don't think she was when in the time in the Druids, she probably wasn't dark and musty. She wasn't kept hidden. And yeah, she was still in the well, and people went to her for healing, but it was seen as more of a rejuvenating experience with the Madonna. And so I was thinking of the correlation of people that are in similar situation or that we see similarly these days. And I went to the late Andrea Gibson that passed away, recently this week. And then I thought of Audre Lorde, 40 years ago. And what I thought similarity of these people is they sat with the underworld. They sat of the liminal space in between, the transition, they sat with death, if you will. And in that they sat with yeah, I guess what it meant to be a part of that underworld and the truth and wisdom that came with that. And I think of my original transformation. I think I came across this book after I came across your work in like 6 or 7 years ago. But it's the book is called The Disabled God by Nancy Island. And she talks about the disabled Jesus. And when Jesus resurrected, he was disabled. He had punctures in his hands and stabs in his, and so he walked. He had the representation of that as a disabled person. And so I think of that as when we sit with a disabled Jesus, and we sit with as somebody with a disability, we're sitting with that liminal space, that closeness to death. And think of Andrea Gibson and Audre Lorde in that way in their times with cancer, and how disability brings them face to face with that liminality, with that deathness, and that underworldness. And so just yeah, just think of contemporary people that are speaking that truth to us, and really grounding us and giving us that wisdom right now. And thank you for bringing the Black Madonna of the underworld to us today.
Thank you for sharing.
Well, can we take a moment before we have communion? Bob's going to lead us in communion because Margie's out gallivanting or something. But can we take this moment to express our gratitude to Christena for taking time to be with us today?
Mm-hmm.
I felt like this was a very special moment.
Thank you. Can I read at some point a short prayer that I wrote to Our Lady of the Underworld?
Who's talking?
Christena.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the whole gallery. All right, go for it.
Okay, great. Subterranean lady who holds the world in balance, you beckon us, the undermothered and overloaded, to swap our baggage for ease. O supreme ease, in your unfathomably strong and bountiful arms. Pregnant virgin, keeper of the cosmic crypt, neither void nor death can thwart your seat of life. Impregnate us with your everlasting abundance, as our burdened and barren souls drink from your holy well. Our Lady of the Labyrinth, you deftly deliver us, just in the nick of time when life's linear booby-trapped maze is set to discourage and detonate. You whisk us away to your circle where love is always in bloom. Miracle-working OBGYN, our resurrection doula, when toxic lies inseminate our body and soul, you pull death from our womb and deliver nothing but life, more life, indomitable life. Spiral seer, your cosmic hands are the gateway to life. You guide each stride, assuring your dear ones that every direction, north, south, east, or west, is anointed by you, tended by you. and lavished by you. Ashe.
Ashe. And as Bob comes on, let me just mention 2 weeks ago we had Reggie Williams, um, and Reggie talked about how large uh, David Daniels was in both my life and Reggie's life. And I just wanted to not let the moment pass without pointing out that David Daniels was Christina's godfather. So I thought that was pretty amazing that, degrees of separation and all. Bob?
Wow. Okay. Thank you, David. Thank you, Christina. So, the New Testament presents more than one, actually many different stories or many different ways to look at the story of what Jesus did. And so as we take communion today, I wanted to look at one from the book of Hebrews. In chapter 2, verses 10 to 15, it says this: In bringing many sons and daughters to glory, it was fitting that God, for whom and through whom everything exists, should make the pioneer of their salvation perfect through what he suffered. Both the one who makes people holy and those who are made holy are of the same family. So Jesus is not ashamed to call them brothers and sisters. He says, I will declare your name to my brothers and sisters in the assembly. I will sing your praises. And again, I will put my trust in him. And again, he says, here I am and the children God has given me. Since the children have flesh and blood, he too shared in their humanity, so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. So Jesus, our older brother, is God's only begotten, God's firstborn. He died to break the power of evil, and in doing so, to redeem the family of God. So I read this sermon about this passage from a pastor in the Shona tribe in Zimbabwe, and he brought some great insight into it. He said, in their tribe, the oldest son is special. He carries the weight of the family. He carries on the family name, and bears the weight of it. The firstborn son is beloved of the father. Father loves all of his children, of course, but he shares an interdependent relationship with the oldest son. In a real sense, the father lives through the son. Only the oldest son can preside over family rituals and gatherings, and the oldest son upholds the family reputation and protects the family from the shame of a bad reputation. He knows he must break the curse or remove any kind of stain there is upon the family. And the oldest son, is true, receives 2/3 of the inheritance, and the remaining children have to split the 1/3 that's left. However, the oldest son is understood to protect that wealth as he protects the name for coming generations. So I just want to say that as we celebrate communion today, let's celebrate it as a family celebration of what our older brother has done for us. So take the elements that you have and partake. And I just say, by way of conclusion, thank you, God, for the family you have given us in history, in heaven, and here in this community. Amen.
Amen.
When is doubt good? It's good to doubt unverified news reports. It's good to doubt gossip. It's good to doubt a man's guilt before he has been fairly tried and all the evidence is in. Doubt occurs when we do not have enough information to convince us. The house is burning. I see no flames, nor do I smell smoke. Look at the sky on a cloudy day and declare, I doubt it's going to rain. Doubts come and go. Sometimes we may even doubt God's love and care for us. Romans 8:38 tells us God's love, and Romans 3:24